My name is Jumaane Williams, and I'm a councilman for the 45th District in Brooklyn, New York. This is my 5th year as a city councilman. I was, just to be clear, I was passionate against the abuses of stop, question, and frisk. I definitely think it's a tool that police officers need to help keep us safe and actually help enforce the law. But there was abuses that I think were problematic, and that's what we were pushing back against. What we launched today was the National Network to Combat Gun Violence, which is a huge issue. That was one of the impetus they said that why they were doing the abuses of stop, question, and frisk. Obviously, it wasn't a good correlation if we look at the data. And then, two, the constitutionality of what they were doing, we think, wasn't valid, and it's been backed up by the courts, thankfully. But the work on gun violence is equally, if not more important, because it is affecting our communities across the nation, actually. And just this week, I'm not sure when it airs, but this week we had, I think, 9 shootings in Detroit, 25 in New York City, 16 in Baton Rouge, 35 in Chicago. Just as I'm speaking, they're on the news with another 2 shootings in Gowanus and Brooklyn. So this is an epidemic that's going on across the country that the country has not responded to in a good way, and I'm hoping that local legislatures that will make up the network come together and discuss best practices. My first love is acting, so and I actually still enjoy that whenever I get a chance to. And then I knew I always wanted to affect change somehow. So when I went to school, it was actually to do drama, and then I started doing filmmaking. And I went to Brooklyn College and got very involved in the campus politics there, and just really saw electoral politics as a way to affect change that I wanted to have on a social level. And kind of the rest is history from there. I got out, got involved with community-based organizations, and then hoped and looked for an opportunity that electoral politics would be an avenue that I could take. I think the first time was in college or end of high school, beginning of college. Yeah, I guess about the 11th or 12th grade is when I started to lock it. I don't know if I exactly know why. Back then I think I just liked, it was cool. I actually remember when I was a young person, I liked seeing, I think it was mostly rock stars with the hair, and they were kind of flinging all over the place when they're on stage and it looked cool. And I think the first person I saw doing that was Eddie Grant. I think we're gonna rock down to Electric Avenue. And now all that's cool, and his hair is cool, and then we had Bob Marley, and it looked very cool. And it's something that I thought, I guess I wanted to emulate. It was later when I started thinking about the, kind of spiritual implications, connecting with the history and things of that nature. But early on, I don't know that it was, at least consciously, that. I do know that my parents made sure I was very steeped in Black history and very proud of that history and being who I am. My mother and father are from Grenada, so that was a big thing in my house. So that might have been part of it as well, just being proud of who I am. Yes, I did cut it at one point, and then I started again. I don't remember what age I was when I started it the second time. Oh, well, I mean, obviously, getting it again, I mean, you just grow older, you get more mature. So I knew that it definitely was a cultural and spiritual thing that I definitely appreciated having it. I think it's a combination, even with the first time, but it's probably more fashion, and this time I'm sure fashion plays a role too, but it was probably more cultural and spiritual than before. So I think that all plays a part. It was just percentage-wise probably more of the cultural side the second time around. And the first time I didn't actually have my whole hair. I actually had the sides, and the hair grew very long, so it looked like I had my whole hair, but I didn't. I got elected and I already had locks. But I made a conscious decision as I was entering the work world to not change, whether it was my hair or my earrings or how I presented myself. make sure I look appropriate for anything that I'm applying for. But I wanted to not misrepresent who I was. So I remember about to go to a job interview, constantly saying, okay, I'm going to keep both my earrings in, so that it's not something that surprises you at the end. And, if you're going to make that conscious decision, you have to know there's going to be some pushback, and you got to have your stuff together. People are going to make judgments. And I remember when I first started growing it, I'm not going to say where I was, who I was with, but when I told them that I was going to be locking my hair, I remember them saying they may have to rethink certain meetings that they send me to. And then I remember saying, I guess that's what it's going to have to be. So, well, I didn't get fired, and they may have rethought where they would send me. I don't know if I chose it over a job. It just was important to me to be who I am, and important to me to represent myself. Well, for me, one, I'm just very proud of my culture, whether it's from Africa, from the Caribbean. I'm also a very big hip-hop head and hip-hop fan, and I'm very proud of being Black American. And my hair, I think, is something I'm also very proud of, and all that I bring spiritually and culturally, and I'm proud for people to see that. I think I spoke to a colleague of mine who was, I had never put it together, but he's an Orthodox Jew, and he was saying, we're similar because we don't mind people seeing what we represent right off the bat. And he just made mention that he wears a yarmulke and I wear my locks, and I was like, that's pretty interesting, that comparison. I don't think I ever wanted straight hair. I wanted jerry curls when it was popular back in the day. Michael Jackson had it. I think everybody wanted jerry curls at some point. My mother said no. My sister got it. I didn't get it. And I cornrowed briefly as I was growing it, not very long. And sometimes I cornrow my hair now. No, I would say I was, the household I grew up in made me very proud of who I am and what I look like. I don't know if I have a preference. I'm trying to think back of people I've dated. I tend to not like to weave too much, I think. It's probably the one thing that I guess I think about. I don't know that I necessarily have a preference, per se. I think a lot of the people I've dated who were Black either did perm, or there was some people that stopped perming but I think blow dried. I think the people, as I was getting older, started learning that the damage they were doing to their hair, stopped doing the perm stuff, which is good. Not that they didn't tell me. But it was funny, when I first cut it off, I think it was a whole, it switched. There were females that never really looked at me that I think did look at me, and vice versa. Like, it was a different group of people when I cut it off. That's a very large question. There might be some truth to it. I mean, when I read about, 60s, 70s, Black Power movement, Black is Beautiful movement, and you see the hair, I always thought it was very powerful. And I thought what would be more powerful is if Black men began to reassure Black women that their hair is beautiful. And I don't think that has happened in a way that it should happen yet. So I think there might be some truth to that. And I think that will be the most powerful thing, when we start letting Black sisters know how beautiful they are naturally. Oh, we know where it comes from. I mean, we've been in this country in particular, taught that everything about us is bad and ugly. So we know 100% where it comes from. But we don't, we don't talk about that much. and we need to talk about it more. So it's kind of hidden underneath about things that we're ashamed of. And so until we start talking about it and talking about why we're ashamed of it, I don't think it'll be fixed. So it's good that we have documentaries like this, so maybe we can speak about it a little more often. And I think, obviously, I think natural hair is beautiful. I think growing up, I mean, yeah, but something I don't know that it's the first thing that you would look at and say, yeah, that's beautiful. I think there is a reason that black women think that. I don't think they're crazy, and I think it's up to us as black men to try our best to reinforce it because we're not doing a good job. Yes, 100%. I mean, and we make it more of an issue, obviously, for our women because they have to go and perm and they have to go and do this and hot comb and all that stuff. It's not healthy for your hair. I think so. I think when you see someone with natural hair, that there's a statement being. Sorry, I think when you see someone with natural hair, particularly women with natural hair, there's a statement being made. I've seen an influx of older women who get 50s, 60s and cut off all the hair and grow naturally. I think they've just grown tired of doing all that stuff. It'd be great if that can happen a little younger. I think it's less of a statement, obviously, with a male, unless they have locks, unless they have cornrows, unless they're doing something that is saying, this is who I am, this is part of my culture, I'm trying to show you something. I think people expect men not to perm their hair necessarily, not to hot comb their hair. They might, but it's not the thing that people expect. I think there's an expectation that black women will do those things. So it shouldn't be, but when they don't do it, I think it's definitely a political statement and a statement being made. But I think it just underscores the difficulties of still being black and brown in this country in general. And none of this stuff gets solved overnight, although people try to say we're in a post-racial America. The biggest thing that we can do is admit that we're not in a post-racial America, and then therefore we can get, hopefully at some point, to a post-racial America. But I think hair and how we wear our hair is still a part of that. So it never surprises me that these cases are happening and still tend to happen. But I think more people have to jump up and defend people's right to wear their hair naturally. I wouldn't mind supporting legislation, but I just want to make sure it's the right legislation. And it's not that we're trying to get everybody to do whatever they want, but it's that these policies that don't take into account people's natural hair don't really make sense. No, I'm just happy that this documentary is going on and that we're continuing this dialogue and this conversation. It's very important to the pride of ourselves, I think. So I'm very happy to take part.